we never went to the store. So we went yesterday, and it was like surprisingly like really cute. And then it's like popping and things, and then it's like
Oh, like sediment?
yeah, it's like cloudy.
And we'll just go down the line here. So if we can just start with Mayor Ballantyne, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mass Creative, for hosting this and for all that you do for the arts. It's so great to see so many friends here. I'm Mayor Katjana Ballantyne. I'm running for re-election to continue the exciting progress my administration has made for Somerville and to protect the progress from threats from Washington and the uncertain economy. I'd like the arts community to know I understand that arts are vital, not an accessory. I really, really get that, and I always have. Even as a counselor in my first few years, I pushed to make sure that there were 8 live-work spaces at the redevelopment of the old Powder House School. I hosted 6 community meetings to make sure that that went through. And I've seen over and over that when we invest in the arts, and arts returns the favor with interest. I'm proud that I've done more for the arts than any other mayor in the history of Somerville. I've set the table, creating an industry standard that made Somerville a regional leader and national leader in arts and culture sector. I created 3 anti-displacement task forces in 2023, including the Creative Displacement Committee. I slowed down our loss of creative spaces. And we created the Somerville Cultural Capacity Plan. My administration is making arts and culture space inventory of our creative economy. And the new arts and creative enterprise zoning definitions that my administration created for the new innovation hub at Summer Nova focuses on the needs of the arts community. I will use the same definitions at Brick Bottom and all future planning and zoning. My new policies make Somerville a beacon and a model for other cities to follow, and I look forward to speaking with you this evening. Thank you.
You're next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Willie Burnley, Jr. I am a Somerville City Councilor-at-Large, a renter who lives near Ragoon Square on Warner Hill, and I'm really excited to be here tonight to echo a little bit what we just heard. Thank you to Mass Creative Council and the other organizations such as Art Stays Here and all the other art organizers who helped put this event on. I'm really excited to be back at Warehouse 11. I was here just last night, feels like a few hours ago, for the Dream a Better World Fest, where we heard for hours from artists, bands, poets, craftsmen, and craftswomen, and folks who live their arts, who try to survive in our community off of what their passions are and how they can contribute to our great city. I don't come to this issue as a politician who thinks, yeah, arts, that's one constituency I need to get. I moved to Somerville after graduating from Emerson College, where I expected to be a starving artist for probably the rest of my life, writing novels and using my words to try to make change in the world. And through that work, I live the values of poetry is not a luxury, that art is not a luxury, that it is a vital force for survival in our communities and for social movements. I come to this work as an organizer. And at my time at Emerson, I was incredibly lucky to join so many mass movements for social change, whether it was the Black Lives Matter movement, whether it was the Sunrise movement, whether it was movements for housing as a human right. And through each of these movements, I saw the vital power in the necessity of art as a part of social change, whether that was fighting for undocumented women in 2017 in Boston, where when we were arrested to make sure that Boston was not collaborating with ICE, that we had honk bands join us, we had clergy join us to dramatize and to uplift the struggles of the oppressed people. Art has always been a tool of the oppressed to fight against their captors and to fight for liberation. That's why during my campaign, I've always tried to center community and center arts as a part of our work. Some of you may know I've had a couple Willie Fests over the course of this campaign. The first of which was at the Jungle, right across the alley from here, where my sign still hangs. And at each of these Willie Fests, we have local bands show up and play and perform so that we can show what Somerville can look like when we actually center arts as a part of our community. When I talk to artists in this community, they know the reality that what is happening now is not working for working people or working artists. People are struggling. Artists are being displaced. Art venues are being displaced. When I had my second Willie Fest at the Rockwell, I was really lucky to be joined by the owner of Once Somerville, which was a really beloved arts venue on Highland Ave, which had to be shuttered during the pandemic. The owner spoke, JJ, spoke about what it would mean to have a city that actually supported arts and artists and arts venues, and how we could harness the power of the arts to actually build a vibrant community for all. I'm running as the only renter in this race, the only person not taking money from big developers, and as someone who isn't just a friend to the arts, but has lived as an artist and has lived off of my words as a writer in this community, and has struggled to do so in the past. When I was displaced, I worked as a freelance journalist and writer. And unlike a lot of folks who get displaced from this community, I was lucky enough to come back. But I know that far too many people are not that lucky. We need a mayor who's actually going to be fighting to make sure that we can have economic diversity, that we can give more money directly to artists, and that we can have communication and responsiveness from our government to the folks who need it most. I'm really excited to talk to you more about my arts platform and to hopefully earn your support in this race. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Councilor Wilson, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. A big thank you to Somerville Create the Vote and everyone else who helped make this happen. Thank you to our moderator as well. I'm Jake Wilson. I'm your City Councilor-at-Large. It's been my absolute pleasure for the last 4 years to represent you on the City Council. I'm here tonight because I'm a huge believer in and supporter of the arts. It was Somerville's arts scene that first drew me to this city for the first time. I lived across the river initially when we moved here in Brighton, and it was a show in Somerville that caused me to make the journey across the river for the first time and expose me to this city. And I've been in love with this place ever since. When it came time to settle down and raise a family, we chose Somerville. And it's the love of art and culture in this city that really makes us special. You know, you go to Austin, they have Keep Austin Weird t-shirts. We don't have anything like that in Somerville, but we all know. We all know what this city's about. And it's that belief. You've heard versions of this from the others on stage here already, but it's important to say, arts are a necessity. They're not a luxury. And unfortunately, the arts are under attack nationally and here in Somerville. And nationally, it's an intentional political targeting. Here in Somerville, it's the forces of gentrification. It's the development that's causing the displacement. And as someone who has extremely good friends who work as artists here in Somerville. I know all too well the pressures that they're under just to stay in this city, just to live here, just to have studio space. A number of them have lost studio space and now work out of their homes. It's real. And we have to do something about it. And that's why it really warms my heart to see so many people showing up for an event like this. Those anti-displacement task force reports. At the previous candidate forum we had, we heard from the mayor that those reports were coming. Those came out in the winter. I really hope that was a misstatement and the mayor has read those reports because they're important. They're very important. There are crucial recommendations in there. And I know people in this room spent a lot of time and a lot of effort putting those together. It's just staggering, the impact that the gentrification and development have caused here, the displacement and the harm. And it's going to continue, and it possibly might even accelerate if we don't make good policy and budgetary choices like the recommendations laid out in those reports. I read those reports. I heard loud and clear the ask to fight. And that's why I'm here tonight, to fight for the arts. In 2022, the MAPC issued the Somerville Arts Space Risk Assessment Report, and they gave recommendations. There were 8 of them. There were 4 year 1 recommendations and 4 for year 2 through year 5. When the city updated our progress on that in 2023, we claimed to have done 1 of the year 1 things, which actually didn't happen. It was the tightening of the ACE definitions. Didn't happen until this year, technically. And then we hired the arts and culture planner position. So we've done 2 of the 8 as of that update. That update is no longer findable anywhere. It was referenced in the report from the Creative Displacement Committee of the ADTF. You can't find it anywhere. Yes, now in 2025, there is the Cultural Capacity Plan that's come out. Unfortunately, a lot of those recommendations that came from that group of the ADTF working on creative displacement aren't found in there. And it's that disconnect that really concerns me. You know, studies and reports are great, but unless they result in tangible action, nothing's actually going to change. We're not going to do anything to stop the bleeding that's happening here of our art scene, and that's why action's needed. We have to celebrate and promote creativity and craftsmanship in our city. We need to invest in public art. We need to put our money where our mouths are on this, right? We need to commission works. We need to pay local artists for their work. I want to see us have a true maker center. You know, we've had places where Artisans Asylum, we dearly missed. We need places where people can come together and make art. And I've got some ideas on that. We're going to get into that here shortly. I love how the city loves to come together as a community. We need more festivals and celebrations in partnership with all the really wonderful community groups that we have here. Let's activate Assembly Square. You hear the complaint all the time, it doesn't feel like Somerville. Let's make it feel like Somerville with art. That is a way we can make that square feel more like the rest of the city.
You've hit your 5 minutes, so if you could wrap it, sorry.
All right, I'll just say I'm excited to talk about arts tonight and what we can do to make them thrive here in Somerville.
Okay, so the first question I have then is, what is the last best Somerville art or cultural experience you had? The last best in Somerville?
The last best, oops. So thank you, the last best. That's really hard to do. Why is it hard to do? Because there's so many great things that go on. From the kids, listening to them play music at the schools, watching some of their art displays. But I will say a very special moment was when I had the opportunity to blow the first honk at the Honk Festival, even though I was still learning how to use the saxophone.
Awesome. Councilor Burnley, you're up.
Thank you. Yes, as I referenced earlier, I was just here last night for Dream a Better World Fest, so I'm going to give them another shout out. And the reason I'm going to uplift that particular event, not just because I was there, but because it was organized by artists in this city. I absolutely believe the city needs to do more to lead on the arts, to support artists, to put money in their hands. And one of the vital aspects of the arts ecosystem is that initiative, is that go-getter attitude that artists have as a part of our ethos to come together and to make art together. Art is not made in isolation. It is part of a larger conversation about social change and social realities that we face. And I was so excited to see some of the folks who I've met throughout this campaign, such as the folks in Ruby Grove, a local band for Somerville residents, put together that event. We need more of that. And the city needs to be there to support and uplift it, not be a source of consternation for artists where they feel like it is a roadblock or a gatekeeper, as I often hear from folks. And I'll just note that one of our most important arts venues, the Armory, has been struggling for years. And we absolutely need to make sure that we do not let the art spaces that we have deteriorate or fail because of lack of leadership in this city, and that we actually uplift it and give more power to the people who are organizing to bring arts to Somerville, because that is how we win. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilor. Last best Somerville art or cultural experience.
Yeah, I love this question. The last one was definitely the Evolution of Hip Hop Festival right here in Union Square on Saturday night. I gotta say that the one that has really stuck with me was earlier this month, Palante at the West Branch Library. I went in I had a general idea what to expect when I went in there. If you aren't familiar, portraits of members of our community who are immigrants. Just beautifully shot. I did not know going in. I'm gonna try to keep it together here when I talk about this. Family friends of ours were featured on there. And this is a family I'd heard the week before. They'd lost their TPS protection and they were leaving the country. It was a gut punch. And I had to rally from that because out in the courtyard there was just this amazing dance party happening. Grooversity was playing. It was a big celebration. And that's art, though. That's what art does. It's about the lows and it's about the highs. And I experienced those in just almost whiplash fashion. The grief I felt for people who are basically being forced out of this country, and then finding that community and the joy. And that has stayed with me, and it will stay with me for a long time.
How do you define a thriving arts and culture sector? And I'm going to start with Councilor Burnley on this one.
The arts aren't just something that we can check the box on. It's something that people, whether they're artists or just residents of the city, feel around them at any given time. When you're walking through Davis Square, when you're walking through Union, when you see murals, when you hear a local band just playing in a square, a thriving arts ecosystem is something that when we fully and truly have it back in Somerville, you'll be able to experience on a day-to-day basis by going out and meeting folks who are your neighbors, who are folks who have the same struggles as many of us in this room, aside from the artists. And you'll be able to experience the art and the passion that they've cultivated over years of hard work. So for me, the way that I define it is based on not only the density of artists in a particular place, but the abundance of art that is around us. And that's why I'm pushing to make sure that we put at least $200,000 in the short-term rental fee, community impact fees that the city just adopted into local art, so that we are putting grants in their hands, and so that we can use murals as a way of beautification of our squares, but also as a means of traffic calming, of street safety, of representation of the incredibly diverse cultures that help make up our city. Art should reflect the reality of what we are, what we have been, and what we're aiming to be. And I feel as though they have suffered over the last several years as artists, many of whom, most of whom in this city are renters, are being pushed out and struggle under the enormous burden of housing insecurity.
Thank you. Councilor Wilson, so it's the question is, how do you define a thriving arts and culture sector?
Yeah, you have to be here to make art here. You have to be able to live here. You have to be able to have studio space. So, making sure that we are protecting the affordable housing that we have, making sure that we're increasing that number dramatically in a way that actually has a real effect. That matters a lot. And the same with art space, with studios and venues, right? Protecting what we have and seeing where we can augment that. To me, thriving means we are sustaining the existing creatives in the city, and that then we're growing that, right? We're building on that. We're bringing new people in as well. That there is just that the vibes are good. That people want to be here. That is the word. Is that Somerville is the place to be. To if you are creating, you want to be in Somerville. And metrics are important. Everyone claims they love data. I really love data. We need a census or survey of creatives, so we know, like, are you feeling displacement pressure? Have you been displaced? What do we need to do? In terms of both on the housing side and on the art space side. And then speaking of art spaces, we need to have a good inventory of those art spaces where we're tracking the stability of them, the threats they're facing. So we're prepared to act quickly when we find that an established art space is facing a threat. And then we have to act on that data. The data is great, but unless you're actually taking it and doing something with it, it's just interesting information. So the Creative Displacement Committee report and the Cultural Capacity report, I think they both talked about supports for grant writing. And how we can, and there were a number of other ideas in there. We need to use those metrics to see how these approaches are working to advance our goal.
Thank you very much. And Mayor Ballantyne.
Thank you. So I will say Somerville is the place to be in terms of art, and Somerville to me is the definition of what a thriving artist and culture sector is. The Thriving Arts Culture Center is a place where artists can live, work, show their art. The arts sector contributes to the economy, but also to the well-being and the mental health, and where there is many opportunities for many different kinds of arts.
There's a lot of concern, as many have referenced already, over the disappearance of affordable studio space for visual artists, practice space for musicians, and performance space. How do you plan to address this problem? And I will start with Councilor Wilson, please.
Yeah, thanks for that. On the engagement side, we have these advisory multi-member bodies that I think we currently underutilize in terms of weighing in on policy and advising on policy. I'd love to see it. We have the Somerville Arts Council, and they do amazing work. I'd love to see a Creatives Advisory Council in this city that could weigh in on, when we're facing a policy decision, could weigh in and give that perspective on it, as well as suggesting changes to existing policies and new policies, that are getting rid of a policy that's proving harmful. My style is to always be talking to people. If I meet someone, I want to know what their experience is, right? We all only have our own lived experience, and I just think it's so important to, we knock a lot of doors lately, and when you get someone on the doors and you find out you're talking about what they do, I wish I could spend an hour talking to each person to get their perspective. On the transparency side, we got to make sure we're communicating effectively about our goals and that we know what our goals are and we're able to get those out to people effectively. And make sure that people know about the plans we're working on and also opportunities that are out there, right? If we're trying to do stuff, if we're not letting people know about it, it's not doing much good. As far as accountability, that starts with availability. Being out there, being accessible to people. And it ends with follow through and action, right? All the recommendations in the world aren't going to matter if we're not actually implementing them, if we're not doing the work.
All right. So, Mayor Ballantyne, so just to repeat, this is a question about the loss of affordable workspace, specifically for artists, and how you plan to address this problem.
So, thank you. I want to, hear, feel, see more and more art out there every day, everywhere, so that because there just can't be enough of it. And my administration created the anti-displacement task force, but specifically for the creatives, because we invited the creative, our artists, to the table to help us develop plans. We work to prevent creative displacement with the committee. I continued to distribute $1.3 million to support artists and groups emerging from COVID. I created the BIPOC initiative with specific funding and programs for space supports. I expanded Some Art, which is the dance space. When the dance complex closed down in Cambridge, we added space here in Somerville. And the newly passed zoning that I proposed for Summer Nova District shows how my administration works with the community, the developers, and labor to make things happen. I've had listening sessions and met with Mount Vernon Street, Miller Street, Brick Bottom, Milk Row, Record Company in Boston for the music industry, Mud Flats. And I also helped when the property owners at Washington Street wanted to displace residents. I met with the owners and the artists. They're not displaced. On Joy Street, when there's concern about there being displacement, I met with the big developers to share how much the value of arts is to our community. And we've made it happen at 57 Central Street also to make sure that there's no displacement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ballantyne. Okay, Councilor Burnley, you're up.
Thank you. And we're hearing a lot of references to the Creative Displacement Task Force this evening, which makes a lot of sense. I actually served on that committee and task force and was part of those conversations. I'm the only one on this stage who was actually part of those conversations. And I referenced earlier the additional grants, $200,000 per annually, roughly, that we could put in the hands of artists directly by implementing the short-term rentals fee, which the city has now implemented. Half of that, 35% of that, in fact, by state law, has to go into affordable housing. When we talk about the experience of local artists and their ability to stay in this community, we have to realize, as much as artist venues are incredibly important for so many different artists, the number one art space where artists create their art is their homes. If they cannot afford to live in Somerville, we are going to lose a huge amount of those folks. I'm really grateful to have been endorsed by Somerville YIMBY and to sit here as the housing candidate because I'm fighting so that we can actually keep people in our community. And I also, just today, got endorsed by UAW, a local union, because I'm on the side of workers. That's one of the direct ways that we can support artists, but there's a lot of indirect ways the city should be investing in as well. The city website should have a portal, a page, where we are connecting local artists, particularly visual, music, and muralists, to small businesses as they're opening so that we can help them make those connections and actually get their artwork displayed and paid for by members of our community. If we all say that we support local artists, if we all say we want to keep them here, we need to actually be finding new and innovative ways to make those connections happen so that more people in our community can have events like this and thrive.
How do you plan to make housing more affordable in Somerville, especially for renters? And does your plan include anything specific for artists? I'll start with the mayor here.
Thank you. I use every tool possible to create affordability, like the municipal voucher program, like universal basic income, like the land acquisition fund, and like the new zoning, as I've mentioned before, for Summer Nova, for Brick Bottom, for Assembly Square. These three plans will bring in over $250 million for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Jobs Trust Fund. And I've added 974 new affordable housing units to the development pipeline. So we have to use every tool possible. We invite people to the table to be able to help create and tell us how they want us to move forward. And, I've been thrilled that the arts community has helped us and talked to us about displacement. There's a program that we did that was called the Sustainable Neighborhoods Working Group. It had 17 points. We went through everything from the Office of Housing Stability to an overlay to 20% inclusionary zoning. So when I came on board, we had gone through the 17 points of how are we going to attack and mitigate the affordability issue. So my team and I got together and I said, we have to turn this upside down and we have to invite people into the conversation. And the theme we came up for it is, how do we now look at this after we've gone through the 17 points of displacement? That's why there are 3 displacement committees for residents, nonprofits, small businesses, and for the creative artists. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Burnley, you're next. This is specifically a question about housing, how you plan to address the affordability issue, and if your plan includes anything specific for artists.
Yes, thank you. As I referenced earlier before, I actually was displaced from Somerville. It was one of the worst times of my life, frankly. It was the most anxiety-producing. It was the most, one of the most depressing, quite frankly. And so I know what so many of our neighbors are experiencing at this very moment. And I talk to them every single day, people who say, I love Somerville, I want to stay in Somerville, but I can't afford it anymore. I can't afford to rent, or I can't afford to buy. Somerville, the city staff, our community organizations such as CAS are doing a lot to try to make sure that Somerville can withstand the economic headwinds that face us when it comes to rent and housing prices. But we're not doing enough. We all know that. And if anyone tells you we are doing enough, they're lying to you. We need new tools. That's why I've proposed creating an Office of Social Housing in this city so that we can utilize the land that the city already owns to its maximum effect to provide more housing, so that the city can actually play a role in building new housing or acquiring new housing, and that then we would be able to set the price for, help get people in the door to, help use as a means to fight against displacement and the ongoing offense of gentrification. Now, that could be a really powerful tool to create new arts buildings where artists can live and work. That would be fantastic, and it absolutely is something I would consider as we build out that portfolio. But it's going to take more than just saying we're going to double down on the tools we have. You actually have to have leadership that is going to fight as hard as possible to find new avenues to keep people in Somerville and to support them in their lifelong journeys here. So whether they're college students, longtime homeowners, we have to make sure Somerville is a place you can live for every stage of your life.
Thank you. Councilor Wilson, you're next. Do I need to repeat the question? You got it.
You got the question, thanks, and a great question. Yeah, housing affordability, I always say that should be table stakes in Somerville politics. It should be everyone's top thing. If someone comes and knocks on your door and the first thing they talk about on the policy front is not housing and housing affordability, it's not a good look. Yeah, the question is, how do we actually accomplish these goals, right? It's one of those things people love to talk about, but having an actual plan and being able to make inroads in that, that's really what it's all about. Unfortunately, the reality is housing creation rates have fallen during the past 4 years. Good news on the way, though. 299 Broadway, the old Star Market. If you know it, it sat there for 17 years in Winter Hill. I live around the corner from it. I serve on the Winter Hill Civic Advisory Committee, and they're about to break ground next month on an amazing, absolutely amazing project there. 6 stories, mixed-use development, shops and restaurants on the ground floor, 5 stories of housing above that, 319 new units, 136 affordable units, and actually it 2 and 3 bedroom units, family-sized units, and it levels people can actually afford, 30%, 60% of AMI. I know the tools that we used to unlock those. There was a 20-year tax break, basically. There was direct cash out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund from linkage fees. There was some creativity of the MassWorks grant. We need to do those all around the city. If we can't get that same scale, at least that same proportion. Because projects like that will keep people that you and I know in Somerville, and we need to be going for things like that. It's the only way we're going to realize our goals in Summer Vision of having 20% affordable housing. Social housing, yeah, I'll work with the state to try to get it to where we can actually make that happen. There's been some enabling legislation. It needs some work still, and I'll do that. So, yeah, affordable housing.
Great, thank you. And thank you everyone for being so conscious of the time. Okay, so this has been referenced already. The city of Somerville released the Somerville Cultural Capacity Plan earlier this year. It describes a series of strategies and recommendations to support and protect Somerville's creative community. How will you implement this plan? And I think we are starting with Councilor Burnley this time.
Thank you. I've referenced this plan and one of the recommendations from it several times already.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just reading my script mindlessly.
No. You got to be nimble. No, I'm kidding. So absolutely. One of the most important things about that report was not just the contents of the report, but the context in which it came out of. It came out of a context in which organizers, who's calling me? Shut up. Organizers were trying to make sure that art stays here. That is the context in which we were having that conversation. It didn't start at the city level, as many things do not. It started from the grassroots. So when it comes to implementing those recommendations, we need to be in communication with the artists who live and work in Somerville. That's why, as mayor, I'll create a liaison position as a part of the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development that will reach out directly to artists and arts venues. A lot of people are talking about how we need to actually figure out what they want. You figure out how they want by making it someone's job to go out and talk to them, to make the city more accessible for them, not just physically accessible, but governmentally accessible. This is something we absolutely can do because hiring at least one position for that is not gonna break the city's bank. But what it will do is create a direct line between the folks who are trying to make Somerville as vibrant and thriving as possible to the corner office. Now, I very much believe that we can do that within our first budget, but it's going to, again, we can't let the organizing stop just because we have allies in any office. The organizing needs to happen at every level, and I would love to be the partner that you all work with in the mayor's office.
Thank you. Councilor Wilson, the Somerville Cultural Capacity Plan, making it happen. Go.
Yeah, thanks for that. And like I've said a number of times tonight, plan that isn't implemented, not worth very much. So how do we get to that point? I talked earlier about the frustration over the lack of implementation of recommendations from previous reports and plans that have come out. Yeah, I'll say on the implementation front, right away, I talked about this earlier, but let's get that data. Let's collect that data. Let's do that census of creatives. Let's do that database of art spaces so we can actually benchmark what's happening and make sure that, hopefully we're not going backwards, but that we're actually moving ahead with this. Making sure that simple things like connecting event organizers with venue owners, whether it's a task force or a business org. And on the space front, we have space in this city, not a lot of it, but we do have some. We have to make sure we're making the best use of that. That's currently not happening. On the city council, you've heard us on a number of fronts express frustration about how we're using, especially the precious indoor space that we do have. And make sure that we're utilizing, really precious resources like the Armory, right? That has come up already tonight. It should be coming up a lot. I hear about the Armory so much. People appreciate the work that the Center for the Arts at the Armory are doing there, and what we've been through as a community here over the last few years with the anxiety around the long-term future is just detracts from what we could be doing in terms of moving in a positive direction when we're just spending all this energy worrying about an existential crisis for a vital organization in the community.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Ballantyne.
Thank you. So I've lived in Somerville for 30 years and very much involved in grassroots and activism, and I'm happy that I worked to initiate the Somerville Cultural Capacity Plan with the Arts Council and the community. And my administration is implementing some parts of the plan now. We got the zoning done for the ACE space, which focuses on the needs of the artists and will also be used as a framework in the Brick Bottom area. We did initiate the ambassador program, connecting creatives to what is happening and keeping them updated. We have also will find resources for creatives using community benefits agreements and our stabilization funds. We've negotiated art spaces to support zoning. I want to emphasize that I will always make room to evolve, which was one of the requirements on the cultural capacity plan, that we always remain nimble. That is why I worked so hard on making sure there was not displacements for the artists at Washington Street, Joy Street, and 57 Central. Yes, we bought the Armory at the height of the pandemic, but we kept the space and the mission, and what my goal is to keep the artists there, and that it will always be artist space. Thank you.
What will you do to ensure that the Armory building will remain sustainable and affordable for the arts for a long time? And I believe, Councilor Wilson, you were already scheduled to be first, so you get first crack at this one.
All right, thanks for mentioning the Armory. Yeah, we all know the history there. We know why the city took it by eminent domain. Arguments could definitely it made sense at the time. There was anxiety about it becoming co-working space as opposed to what people want the Armory to be. It just turns out we're just not very good landlords. That is becoming abundantly clear. It's been from conversations I've had with the Center for Arts at the Armory, with tenants there. It's been a tough time having the city of Somerville as a landlord at the Armory. And things weren't helped by a process that led to, at one point, recommendations coming out of the work with the consultant that basically eliminated having a third-party operator as an option for the Armory. It's basically saying, Center for Arts at the Armory, thanks, but we're going to go in a different direction. Thankfully, that was reconsidered. That is back on the table now. Center for Arts at the Armory, if you haven't dealt with them, and I've dealt with them directly, I've booked space with them as a nonprofit leader. I booked space with them for this campaign. Love it. Love the work they do. They know how to run that building. We should not be messing with them. The trick is, yeah, public procurement. It is very, very tricky. We can't, we have our hands tied in a number of ways on how we can go about getting to where we want to be here. And in terms of what I'll do, we're going to make sure that basically the RFP process needs to unfold in a way that we really maximize the chances of a good outcome here for the Armory, for the community, for art here. I'm confident we can do that. We just need to prioritize that and need to be very conscious about how the processes we design have a real profound impact on people like Center for Arts at the Armory, who we learned recently are experiencing financial issues as a result of this.
Thank you. Mayor Ballantyne, the Armory.
So thank you. For those of you who don't know, I will just say that we took the Armory by eminent domain in '21. I was on the city council. I totally supported it. Somerville was about to lose one of its most important cultural spaces to artist displacement. We made the bold choice back then to protect it, even in the middle of a pandemic, because protecting the creative community certainly was the most important to me. And as you've heard today, as we consider in Somerville the arts, the souls of our community. It's taken longer than we've hoped, yes, but that's because we're not just managing a building, we're building a long-term sustainable home for artists. And in the end, I'm confident that the Armory will stand as one of the most important cultural investments that our city has made. And the rollout plan includes a governance committee, which we have been seeking members of that governance committee, and there will be a building committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. This is an issue I've been dealing with as a councilor since I got onto the city council almost 4 years ago. I live in the same ward as the Armory. Early on into the city's taking of it, I was in communication with the folks who live and work at the Armory. The arts at the Armory is at the heart of that space, and I want to be clear. When my colleague says that the city has been a bad landlord or is a bad landlord, that is because of direct choices that have been made by this administration, and it is an understatement. We have been a terrible landlord. The city has given illegal leases to the folks who work at the Armory and live at the Armory. The city has let it become a rat's, smorgasbord in the basement, has taken over spaces without adequate communication, has just recently, this year, sent essentially an eviction notice to the one person who actually lives in the Armory, and says that they have to be out by next February. The city has been terrible on this front, and none of it needed to happen as such. As mayor, I'm going to make sure that we actually have co-governance of the Armory. The Armory is a vital institution that has supported people in this community for many years as a space for not only watching arts, but for hosting weddings, for speed dating, for all these events that are really at the heart of, what it means to live in a city that's quirky as Somerville. And we shouldn't just say, oh, we have a long-term plan, so we're going to change everything and do what we want. We need to work with the people who've made the Armory the jewel of Somerville that it is and make sure that it can be that in the future. Some changes will happen, but it shouldn't be just at the request and at the whim of the city. It should be done in communication with the arts community.
Sure, yeah. Mayor Ballantyne is going to do a 1-minute response.
Thanks. So we did take the Armory during the height of the pandemic, and we are learning and we are adapting and we're putting strong systems in place. The decisions that were made were transparent and they involved the community. And the Armory, I just want to emphasize, is not just a building, it's a cultural anchor, and we're committing to stewarding that in the right way.
Thank you. The Armory, the jewel of Somerville. Write it down, guys. I think that's my poll quote. The first question I want to ask is about nightlife. Neighborhoods, including Union Square and Davis Square, have struggled to reignite nightlife following the pandemic. That's not uncommon in cities. What strategy will you employ to bolster nightlife, which is so important for creatives to do their work? And I believe Mayor Ballantyne is first up on this one.
Thank you. I plan on supporting the existing venues and expand new creative venues so that Somerville will continue to be the envy of the region for nightlife and creativity. My new zoning at Summer Nova will renew the energy for music and nightlife in Union Square. In Davis and Union, our entire city, actually, are always evolving. In the future, nightlife might include, as we have, new spaces like Bow Market. And we have 3 new ceramic places, a new print shop, a new record store, a new photography shop on Highland Ave, and a robust painting school and studio in Union Square. And my administration will continue to support Porch Fest, open studios, of course, Fluff, Honk, that bring thousands of people to Somerville to our venues from about May to October. And I do believe that we need a better winter activity. And let me think about it, okay? Maybe sledding down the closed McGrath ramp into Union Square could be one of those.
I do think Somerville has more festivals than any other place.
It does.
Okay, yes. I think Councilor Burnley, nightlife, you know.
Nightlife, yes. I'm an avid fan of nightlife. I'm an avid goer. Some of you in this room may even know me from nightlife. And I, as someone who does actually enjoy the nightlife in the greater Boston area, I'm actually really disappointed and sad when I hear my neighbors say, oh, let's go out. Let's go to Boston. Let's go to Cambridge. And they feel like there's not a place for them in our city where they can actually enjoy themselves. Now, there are certainly venues that have great events, and there are incredible events that come every once a month, every twice a month, like Goblin Hole at the Crystal Ballroom, which I'm a big lover of. But we need to do more as a city government to actually uplift the spaces that do exist and to help create new ones. In the back of Nook, the cocktail bar in Bow Market, there is a great dance floor and a great space that the city should be actually utilizing more. My buddy Josh just walked in about 20 minutes ago. Hey, Josh. Hey. He's waving. You guys aren't looking, but he's waving. He's a real guy. He's actively, at this moment, trying to create a new arts nonprofit. But to do so, he had to work with an organization in Boston because they are doing work that Somerville is not doing. I have a pair of buddies who live in Union Square who are a pair of queer DJs who host an event called Fruit Stand at the Sinclair every Saturday night. It's a wonderful event. But they live in Somerville, and they should have had that event in Somerville, but they couldn't find a space that met their needs. The city needs to be doing absolutely more so that we can uplift the creativity and the passion of artists that live here and give them a space to actually do their art. And for folks like myself who do less musical arts but do enjoy some good music and want to go dancing.
Yes, Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like complaining about the nightlife in this area is one of our favorite pastimes. If you moved here from another city where, late nights really are a thing, it does hit you how different this area is. We blame the early end to operating hours of the MBTA, right? Culturally, it just doesn't seem like it's something that we do around here. And I think we need to change that. I think there's an opportunity actually for Somerville to really change that. Just recently, the MBTA announced they're trying out late night hours again, Friday and Saturday nights. That's big. That's really big. And we should be looking to see what we can do in conjunction with that. Right, we have some really, really good spots in Somerville here. Let's make sure that we're getting the word out on those. Make sure people know, people in Boston and Cambridge know they can take the T and get to those spots. I would love to see Somerville buck the regional trend and actually have a genuine nightlife, what people in other cities just come to expect and take for granted. We have Assembly, Union, and Davis Square all served by the T. There are T stations right there. So I'd be curious, how can we make this permanent with the MBTA? Assuming, as I recall, we tried this before, and there were different reports on how well it worked. I recall a lot of people liking it. It seemed pretty popular from everything I remember. I'd love to see how we can make this a permanent change. And then how do we work with local businesses to make sure they're aware that they can do later operating hours? I've certainly gone around myself and encouraged places to take advantage of the later hours with their permitting. And I'll tell you, nothing tastes better than having a late night meal, 1 a.m. at a place that you told about the opportunity to stay open later, and you were able to take advantage of that personally. So yes to nightlife.
Great. I think Councilor Burnley had one more thing to add.
Yeah, just really quickly, we were talking about this in the green room a little bit earlier. I am the chair of the Licenses and Permits Committee, and I have been for the last 3.5, almost 4 years on the city council. This is the committee where licenses and permits are approved for most businesses, including our extensions. For the time I've been a city councilor, we have never refused an extension of hours to any business that has asked for one, and I would, just putting out the call there. If you are a business that is curious or interested in having extended hours, making yourself available for folks who work late nights or who want to go out and enjoy the nightlife and might want to get some food, please apply with the city, because as long as I'm in office, we will make sure that there are plenty of options day long, night long for Somerville residents.
Somerville's arts and culture sector requires public investment to deliver the economic and community benefits that residents enjoy. What is your plan for investing in the long-term growth of the sector, including support for cultural nonprofits and artists?
Yes, as I just mentioned in the answer to the nightlife question, there are models for this in neighboring cities. Boston, Cambridge, they have nonprofits that are born out of the city, like in Cambridge's case, that actually help people not only display their art, but create their own venues to promote arts, to put art money in the hands of artists directly. Somerville has not built up, as a city, has not built up the kind of policy infrastructure to do what those cities have, but that is a choice. We can totally do it. We don't have as much money as Cambridge and certainly not as much as Boston, but we need to be making these investments today in order to see them blossom tomorrow. And I am very committed to actually looking at the landscape, doing some comparative analysis, and making sure that we can work with the folks who already are in this community and want to uplift the folks that they play in bands with or who they've met over the years in the art scene, and actually make sure that they have the long-term stability to continue what I said last night is their real job, and not just those side jobs where they make the bulk of their money, but do the thing that their part is passionate about. The city needs to be an active participant in those conversations, and we have the power to do it.
Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. Again, talk is cheap, right? When we talk about investment, that can be financial support, it can be operational support too. We're in tough economic times right now, and that's having a real impact on the city financially. We've seen the expected drop in growth of the city budget that's coming. We know that's coming. So we're going to have to be creative in terms of how we increase our investments in the arts here. We need additional revenues. We heard Councilor Burnley talk earlier about the need for the short-term rental tax revenues. The Municipal Empowerment Act, currently still languishing up on Beacon Hill. We need that. We need additional revenue from those meals and rooms excise taxes. That is crucial for us. You know, how do we bring investment and interest in the arts into the city by making it an arts hub in our conversations with the folks looking to come in and do development here and explaining that this is who we are. This is what you do if you want to come in here and do something. This is the culture of our city. We've got to make sure that we're communicating well two ways on this, right? And it always goes. We talked about this tonight. How do we streamline the permitting process? Because that really impacts artists on the operational side, and if they're trying to make a living here in the city. The permitting side is a big deal, and I think that's low-hanging fruit for us, and we can definitely do better on that front.
Thank you. Mayor Ballantyne.
Thank you. So, future investment,
Yes, sorry.
sustainability, right? Okay.
What is your plan for investing in the long-term growth of the sector, including?
The long-term growth is what I've always heard for the last nearly 30 years is space, trying to create space. So the focus, certainly in my time in elected office, has been how do I make sure that artists have space and that they're not displaced. That's why I worked so hard as a city councilor and hosted 6 community meetings and pushed like crazy to get the 8 live work spaces over at the redevelopment of the Powder House School. That's why I pushed so hard for the zoning at Summer Nova as the innovation hub to ensure that the space will be there. And then, again, it's the framework for Brick Bottom. And then, there's money. What we're working with MAPC is to get a cultural trust. The cultural trust works like the Affordable Housing Trust. So we can then develop a linkage fee for new development that helps fund the cultural trust. So I've been pushing and working with MAPC and the state delegation on that. I also want to leverage, and I've continued to, is my relationships with the governor, the lieutenant governor, Representative Barber, to make sure that that our state Mass Cultural Council's budget is higher, because as you compare it with other states, it's actually smaller, and that helps fund our local Somerville Arts Council. So, I will do, and I pledge to do what I've been doing and continue to do more to make sure that the arts community can thrive in the long term. Thank you.
I'm ready, thanks. Again, I'm just hugely appreciative to the organizers for putting this together, for you all for turning out tonight, and for Ms. Mason for moderating. It's been a lot of fun talking about the arts. Again, art is essential. It's not a nice add-on, and we have to live those values. As your counselor at large, I've been here for you as mayor. My door will always be open, but listening and saying all the right things is one thing. Backing that up with action, that's entirely a different animal. I'll be a mayor who doesn't just have the backs of artists and creatives in the community, but who centers you in what we're doing as an administration, and who maintains constant engagement with you as we go about charting the course of the city. If you care about arts and culture here in Somerville, the things that make our city truly special, I'm asking for your vote on September 16th and November 4th. Thank you.
Great. Mayor Ballantyne, you have the floor.
Thank you. So my leadership record in these uncertain times demonstrates that I am the clear choice in continuing to make progress and to defend our values and federal benefits for the Trump administration. I've sued the Trump administration because he's after sanctuary cities, and I'm a leader of a sanctuary city and a naturalized American citizen. He wants to claw back our federal funds. That's unconstitutional, and he wants to use our local police in mass deportation efforts. That's also unconstitutional. So I'm standing up to the bully, and that's why I filed a lawsuit with Chelsea to make sure that our rights continue. In my time as mayor, I've brought Somerville together, and we've created lasting change. Let's keep working together for an inclusive, equitable city where we can all thrive together. I humbly ask for your vote on September 16th, and I thank you.
Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone who showed up here tonight. As the saying goes, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. As I mentioned at the start of this conversation, I don't come to this issue as someone who thinks, oh, there's artists, I gotta say something that artists like. I come to this issue as someone who went to school to be an artist, who lived in Somerville as an artist, who struggled as an artist in this city, and who was fighting with a platform that you can read on my website, and it's the only one, for artists in this city. I know that there is so much more that we need to do to build the infrastructure, to put the funds in people's hands directly, and to provide the pathways to opportunities indirectly for artists so that Somerville can maintain our magical lure as having more artists per capita than anywhere else in the country. But the only way we can do that is with leadership that fights like, I was almost gonna use some language, fights like your family. Because this isn't an issue where we can look at each other and say, this is a constituency, that's a constituency, that's a constituency, and they all have to fight for the crumbs that are offered based on what we're already doing. We need to fight like we are each other's family on this front. Because in so many ways in Somerville we are. As I said before, I've been centering the arts in my campaign, just as I will as mayor, by having many local events where we host local bands, where we have folks who can sell their arts directly, such as at the Jungle, at Willie Fest 1, at the Rockwell, at Willie Fest 2, and in this space, September 3rd, for Willie Fest 3. If you come right back here, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. What it feels like when someone goes out of their way to intentionally bring together local artists so that they can co-create and build nights of magic for each other and for their neighbors. This is something that I'm going to continue to do throughout this campaign because I think it is vitally important that we don't just have extractive politics where I simply ask for your support and for your vote, which I will do in a minute, but that we offer experiences to each other, that we make sure that we can enliven each other as neighbors should do. It's an act of care to create art. It's an act of care to share art. And I want to make sure that our city is built on an economy of care and invests in the community care that is so incredibly needed in this moment of so much federal despair and totalitarianism. That's why I'm asking you, as kindly and humbly as I can, for your support in this election. I know that Somerville can lead the way on what issues, whether it's the arts, whether it's housing, whether it's making sure that our cultural landscape is as vibrant as it possibly can be. But that can only happen when we work together and when we take on the forces at the state level and at the federal level that are depriving us of the realities that we deserve in this city. And so I humbly ask that on September 16th or on September 9th, 10th, and 11th for early voting, that you cast your ballot for Willie Burnley Jr. Thank you.